For over 600 years, the ancient world was dominated by two unstoppable powers. Rome ruled the West with iron discipline and endless legions. Persia controlled the East with wealth, speed, and unmatched cavalry. They fought again and again, but neither empire could ever deliver the final blow. This was not a single war with a clear beginning or end. It was a cycle of invasion, revenge, and retreat that lasted longer than most civilizations survived. Every generation inherited the same conflict and the same impossible goal. Rome believed discipline could conquer anything. Persia believed mobility could defeat any army. When these philosophies collided, battles were brutal, clever, and endlessly inconclusive. Whenever Rome marched east, the land itself became the enemy. Endless deserts, broken supply lines, and ambushes drained even the strongest legions before battle began. Whenever Persia pushed west, they faced stone walls, fortified cities, and an enemy who refused to break formation. Speed meant nothing when momentum died against Roman defenses. Victory never lasted. A captured city would be lost within years. A defeated army would return stronger, smarter, and angrier than before. Rome mastered roads, logistics, and organization. Persia mastered deception, mobility, and psychological warfare. Each empire evolved specifically to counter the other. This war was not fought for glory alone. It was fought for survival, prestige, and control of the ancient world's richest trade routes. Generals rose to power and fell into disgrace, blamed for victories that achieved nothing, and defeats that changed everything. Even when one empire stood victorious on the battlefield, the war itself remained unwinnable. Because destroying the enemy meant destroying the balance that kept the world standing. Century after century, the borderlands turned into a permanent war zone. Fortresses rose. Cities fell. Populations fled. Peace existed only on paper. Rome called Persia its greatest rival. Persia called Rome a stubborn obstacle. Both were right, and both were trapped. The real cost was not measured in territory, but in exhaustion. Money drained. Soldiers vanished. Empires aged. Neither empire could afford peace. And neither could survive endless war. That contradiction sealed their fate. In the end, Rome and Persia did not defeat each other. They weakened themselves, until history found new conquerors waiting in the shadows. As the centuries passed, the war stopped feeling like a choice. It became a habit, an inherited duty passed from emperor to emperor, king to king, army to army. Every treaty was temporary. Both sides signed peace knowing it would break, because neither empire trusted the other to remain weak. Rome believed its system was eternal. Persia believed its culture was unbreakable. History would prove that both beliefs were illusions. Wars were no longer fought for conquest, but to prevent collapse. Each campaign was a desperate attempt to delay decline. The frontier cities paid the highest price. They were burned, rebuilt, and burned again, until nothing remained but memories. Roman soldiers learned to fear Persian ambushes. Persian warriors learned to respect Roman discipline. Mutual hatred slowly turned into reluctant admiration. No single battle could decide the war. Because every victory created new enemies, and new problems. Empires measured success in survival, not triumph. As long as the enemy still existed, the war continued. Empires measured success in survival, not triumph. As long as the enemy still existed, the war continued. Rome expanded roads and fortresses. Persia expanded intelligence networks and rapid strike forces. The war evolved into a contest of systems, not armies. Even emperors struggled to understand why victory always slipped away. The answer was simple, and terrifying. The enemy was too strong to destroy. Each empire needed the other to justify its power. Without a rival, authority weakened and loyalty faded. The cost of constant war hollowed both empires from within. Taxes rose. Rebellions spread. Faith in leadership cracked. The armies kept fighting, but belief was fading. Soldiers no longer dreamed of victory. Only survival. By the final centuries, Rome and Persia were no longer racing forward. They were leaning on each other, trying not to fall. The war had reshaped the ancient world's borders, but left its people exhausted and broken. Then, from the south, a new force began to rise, unnoticed at first, underestimated by both giants. Rome and Persia were too focused on each other to see the future forming at their borders. The endless war had drained their strength. They no longer had the energy to adapt. What centuries of fighting could not do, exhaustion finally achieved. The unwinnable war ended not with a final battle, but with silence. Rome would fall in the west. Persia would collapse in the east. Both believing the other would fall first. History remembers their conflict as a warning, not of weakness but of balance. When two giants stand equal in power, war stops being about victory. There are no final triumphs, no total defeats, only endurance. Both sides keep fighting not to win, but to avoid being the one who collapses first. In the struggle between Rome and Persia, survival itself became the only prize left worth fighting for. The greatest wars in history are not always the bloodiest. Sometimes, they are the longest, stretching across generations until no one remembers why they began. Rome and Persia fought so long that war became normal, peace became suspicious, and exhaustion became permanent. Rome versus Persia was never just a clash of armies. It was a collision of cultures, strategies, economies, and identities. Each empire shaped itself around the other, becoming stronger and weaker at the same time. Borders hardened, fortresses multiplied, and diplomacy became another weapon. Every decision was made with the rival in mind. Even peace treaties were drafted like battle plans, designed to fail the moment weakness appeared. In trying to defeat each other, Rome and Persia unknowingly reshaped the future. Their endless war created new power vacuums, new ambitions, and new forces waiting patiently beyond their borders. The war did not end with a final battle or a decisive treaty. It faded, quietly, because both empires had nothing left to give. Strength was gone. Adaptation slowed. Time had finally caught up. Empires rarely fall because they are defeated by enemies alone. They fall because endless conflict drains the very system that once made them powerful. Rome and Persia learned this lesson too late. Rome believed Persia would collapse first. Persia believed Rome could not endure forever. Both were watching the wrong enemy, because time was watching them both. This was the war no empire could truly win. Not because of weakness, but because of balance. Each side was strong enough to survive, but not strong enough to destroy the other. And that is why this conflict still matters today. Because it reveals a truth about power that history keeps repeating. Unlimited ambition always creates an equal resistance. Rome and Persia did not shape history through victory. They shaped it through exhaustion, through balance, and through consequences they never intended. History does not reward domination forever. It rewards those who understand when to stop, and those who fail to stop become lessons instead. Rome versus Persia was not a story of heroes and villains. It was the story of two giants locked in a struggle they could never finish. And in the end, neither conquered the other. They simply ran out of time.